Welcome to the Snap UK podcast, your one-stop shop for all the news, views and opinions you need on the NFL from this side of the pond. And although the season is over and done with, we're back again with our NFC end-of-season review. Before we dive into that and the news, I'd like to point out the very cheek of the person who said, no weeks off, not being here this week. You lazy bastard, James. That's what I'm saying. I'm here. You're here. John's here. Gary's here. Paul's here.
He needs to realise the grass isn't always greener.
Terrible decision.
Gary doesn't even want to be here. And he's
Do I look like I want to be here?
But
No.
Jimothy's out in London tonight or something,
Snobbing it up.
sending messages to the group.
I know.
Apparently.
Unbelievable.
Like we give a shit about NFL.
His job is
Yeah.
more important than this.
So I've heard. So I just wanted to get that out of the way early because I was all up for a 4-week break and apparently I was lazy. Right. We've got some breaking news to discuss, so we're going to dive straight into that. Calvin Ridley suspended indefinitely, including the entire 2022 season for betting on NFL games. Now, I don't know if this is the personal issue he missed half of last season dealing with, because that hasn't been clarified, but this is bad news for one of the game's best young wide receivers and a team that desperately needed him back.
Yeah, I think this is one of these things where almost, because it's literally just broken. We found out in about the last 10 minutes, haven't we?
Yes.
I'd want to see more.
What, gambling?
I want to see what Richard Seymour has to say about it. I want to see more about. I want to see how this develops because, yeah, you're absolutely right. This is something that destroys the plans for Atlanta, but also this also opens up quite a lot of possibilities. You know, there's the rumours around Amari Cooper becoming free, and that gives a new home for Amari Cooper. This also
Its stock has gone up, I think it's fair to say.
this also increased the targets that Kyle Pitts is going to get dramatically.
Let's not forget Devontae Adams is technically out there to be picked up.
For a man who had the last dance last season and wants to win a Super Bowl, if you want to win a Super Bowl, you don't move to Atlanta.
You'd think not, no.
See, I think it's just endemic of what's going on in the league at the moment. There needs to be more to help these young players that come from
Too much too soon.
different backgrounds that then have all this money. You've seen it in Las Vegas.
Yeah, the
And,
Henry
and we've
Ruggs
seen this in the
situation.
Premiership over here lots of times as well. Again, players that lose fortunes gambling. It is an illness, and we can laugh at the guy and all that kind of stuff. But that would be a bit harsh, wouldn't it? Because clearly, what the league is, it feels like they're just not putting enough safeguards in place for some of these young players because careers are getting ruined about things that could be avoided.
Pat McAfee has his show, which is, of course, he's taken the money from DraftKings, FanDuel. Of course, you watch Game Pass and you get the American adverts. Sports betting it's crept its way over there.
It's a massive industry.
Massive.
10 years ago, the NFL wouldn't have touched it with a barge pole, but they needed to find new revenue streams, and this is a huge stream. We all play fantasy football. Most people that watch the NFL play fantasy football. We don't, as a rule, spend a lot of money on playing our fantasy football. We put in at the start of the season, and that's it.
Well, we haven't even done that for the last 2 years. We haven't even bothered.
But a lot of people will happily play daily fantasy sports, and it is just gambling.
Yeah.
Because you have no actual influence on the outcome. You can pick players, but you're not actually influencing the outcome of your team. Not really. Because you don't know who's going to fall over. You're not playing the game.
I get that, but I think that's coming from someone who's terrible at fantasy football.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, but yeah, you're right. Gambling is gambling. And if you like to gamble, you like to
But
gamble.
that is the very definition of what makes it gambling, is that you're not really in control of what's going to happen.
But it's a dangerous precedent, and that's, for me, where it goes to, because you bet on other games. What's to stop you then betting on your own team? What's to stop you betting on a performance you can directly influence?
We don't know whether Calvin Ridley's been betting on Falcons games. We have no idea.
But this is why I say we need to see how this plays out. Because
To be fair, at the start of the season, if he was betting on Falcons game, he wouldn't have got a lot because it was obvious they were going to lose time and time again.
only bet his entire year's salary they'd beat the Jets. So it's fine.
I mean, it's a shame that we're having to have this conversation about a player we were all looking forward to having back because he'd been brilliant. And it must be a devastating blow for the Falcons. Yes, they've got Kyle Pitts, but don't forget, Calvin Ridley was supposed to be the replacement for Julio Jones, really. And he looked capable. He may not have ever been Julio Jones, but he looked capable of filling the void. And now, what do you do? Somebody said this before we started. Does this become the Josh Gordon never-ending suspension saga? Or is it going to be rehabbed and back in the league in a year? Which it could well be. There's no reason to think he can't do that.
Unless we hear something like he's been betting on Falcons games, I think you'll see him back in the league.
He'll be back. I mean, there's much worse crimes being...
Actual crimes.
I mean, Antonio Brown will probably be back before Calvin Ridley. That is as insane as it is.
Yeah.
And if it, gambling addiction, if that was his reason, we can't, but if that's what it was, then, it is a serious issue, and it's getting ever more prevalent in society.
I mean, he was only gambling, have a naked, blood-covered fight with his brother.
No, that would have made it all right.
There's a receiver doing that at the Bills.
Doing that at Betfred would have made it okay. Is that what you're saying?
I'd have had a bet on that fight.
Okay, we should move on from that. But if there's further breaking news, we can fill in. John looks like he's about to tell me something.
No. But I just agree. We can't really say much, but we will just have to keep our eyes on it over the summer.
We should talk through the players that have been franchise tagged or not franchise tagged, which is actually slightly more interesting. On the franchise tag front, Count Dooku at the Browns. Apparently, you tell me he's been franchise tagged. I did not see this.
I feel that's smart, though, because that's a position where they had Austin Hooper come in, and I thought Hooper and Njoku would be a really great pairing, but I don't think Austin Hooper's done anything there.
He's been disappointing, I think is the phrase.
And
Count Dooku is a more athletic player.
I say, Njoku's been asking for more money for a while, or to be traded.
Here's neither.
So here's neither. I mean,
what do you get for being tagged as a tight end?
I don't know, actually.
I have no idea. And this is why James should have got off his arse and come in, because he would have had that answer for us, wouldn't he?
We might get a text from him in a minute.
We're going out live.
Yeah, that's it. While you look up Count Dooku's tag number, plus some players who've not been tagged. Chandler Jones, who in the last 5 years has the third most sacks in the league.
But he's getting old.
But come on, he's just had a brilliant season for the Cardinals again.
They're going to let him go as well, aren't they?
I think so. And J.C. Jackson at the Patriots not being franchise tagged. Now, that doesn't surprise me because this is what we always end up doing. But for a team that's trying to still build its offense, you can't afford to let your best defensive pieces walk away. Seems like a strange one this season.
If there's any coach that... If J.C. Jackson was released by any other team, I'd be a bit more sceptical. But Belichick always seems to find another piece. And, J.C. Jackson will be terrible at the Lions next year, probably. Because that's the way forward.
To the Niners, I'd be really happy with him at the Niners.
He's not over 32. He can't be a cornerback for you.
Any cornerback, and you'd have said, well, yes, please, I'll take him.
Yeah, but this is J.C.
If I
Jackson.
told you John Farrow was now playing at cornerback, you'd say, well, yes, please. So that massive wingspan at the back there and watching Ball Hawk.
The Bleacher Report claims the tight end franchise tag is $11 million.
So he did just get paid, really.
It got paid. But
fair play.
One thing I want to... when we're looking in terms of who wasn't tagged, so the Chiefs tagged Orlando Brown.
Yes.
Which means they haven't tagged Tyrann Mathieu, who's likely going to go to free agency, and that's a hell of a loss.
Well, but that's because Tyrann Mathieu is also getting a bit older, and he was aware that he wasn't going to get tagged. And I think he would quite happily stay for a little less money, wouldn't he?
I think
there's the press saying that
there's a very good chance that he will be back on a team-friendly deal because it's his best place to win a Super Bowl, be competitive. Don't forget, Tyrann Mathieu only plays 8 or 9 games a season now. I think he doesn't play 17 games, does he? Because of the way he plays the game, he's an injury waiting to happen.
Unless maybe the Ravens come in and offer him big money because he's a sort of a need for them. I think he stays on less money.
An injured backfield, the 49ers could do with that.
I'm not taking this shit from a Giants fan.
That is fair.
We do have a cornerback that's available.
Maybe you should try and play him at wide receiver then.
Actually, to be fair, Tyrann Mathieu played 16 games last year.
Did he?
Yeah.
But not 17.
Not 17. 15 the year before. He's...
Well, I am wrong.
In
Kansas,
Kansas,
he was constantly injured.
In Kansas, he is a pretty
then I stand
regular
corrected.
player.
I was not aware. I just assumed
In fact,
he was
he missed a game because of COVID. So
I see. Lazy. Let's talk about Cole Beasley, who's been told he can seek a trade after basically being relegated down the depth chart because of his stance, I think it's fair to say.
he's a stubborn cunt.
Oh, well, I mean, that's one way of putting it, yeah. He stuck to his guns, fair play. Everybody's entitled to do these things. But he had his worst season with the Bills, 600-odd yards, not very many touchdowns, basically wasn't able to surpass several other players to get back to his number of targets because the team didn't feel comfortable with him this year. But he'd made his stand, this is what I believe in, and it wasn't really the team ethic, was it?
No,
He felt out of place there for the first time.
Yeah, and I think he almost kind of tried to make himself the martyr of this. I'm not giving an opinion either way, right?
Yeah.
But he's wrong.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Another player who's been cut, that this time last year, some people on this podcast were happy with the acquisition of Kyle Rudolph. Cut from the Giants for being rubbish.
Yeah, but we also have Stonehands Engram.
Yeah.
Do we? I thought he's finished his
At the end of last season,
contract.
Coming into this season, we had Stonehands Engram.
Yeah.
Could well be an entirely new shake-up at that position for the Giants.
I've been told that basically we're just having like a yard sale. Just everything's free to go. Everything's give us your best offer. Anything's available.
Carl Rudolph was a player over the hill.
Yes.
That's why he left the Vikings, wasn't it? Because he was on the decline. So. Yeah.
Jimmy Graham's been on a decline for 5 years, and he's still picking up 10 million a season somewhere.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I think was he still at the Bears, Jimmy Graham?
Yeah.
Catching touchdowns.
If he's a tight end, he's probably at the Bears.
Yeah. I think Rudolph, he was always on the decline at the start of the season, so I don't see that as a massive surprise. I wouldn't be surprised if he retired.
Same.
Yeah, he basically didn't help himself by not being able to surpass Evan Ingram, who'd been a disappointment. I think he could have bought himself another year or two if you'd managed to cement that position with the Giants because they would have kept him. But who's looking for a guy that's not as effective as he was 2 years ago and is better in the blocking game than the passing game? Not many teams are looking for that.
I think Evan Ingram's the interesting one here because you remember when we had the Eric Ebron Participation Award at Detroit, didn't we?
Yeah.
Moved to Indianapolis. I realised there was an Andrew Luck-shaped solution there, but it's an amazing, a different scheme, a different quarterback, a different coach can make to a tight end.
Evan Ingram's shown glimpses in the past, I think. Definitely. He had a good, not this year, but the year before last. He had, 8 or 9 games where he looked really impressive on a terrible Giants team. So.
Oh, yeah, we suck, yeah.
But, yeah, I think
player.
sometimes you just need a change.
It is the Ebron thing. That's what it is. You've got to move. You've got to make your money when you can and don't hang around if it's not working for you. That's what players have to do.
400 yards last year.
And just to rub more salt in my own wound, Tyrann Mathieu has started 120 of a possible 129 games. So I'm a dick, as it turns out.
I think he had most of his misses were in
Hooters.
With his last year at Arizona, yeah, most of his missed games were in 1 year.
I literally thought John was either there with Hooters or watching the Hootenanny. I wasn't sure which way he was going to go with it.
Watching the Hootenanny in Hooters.
Oh, amazing.
that would be good.
You said he's missed 8 or 9 games. He gets about 8 or 9 games, so he's missed 8 or 9 games.
There or thereabouts, or just talking out of my ass, which is now what it appears is what I was doing. It's just the way I'd observed it.
400 yards for Evan Ingram, but 11 drops, which led to 3 turnovers. And when you've got Daniel Jones at quarterback, you can't have a tight end who makes 3 turnovers.
No, I mean...
And 2 of those were turned into touchdowns, by the way.
Yay.
It's not what you need, is it? Help giving away points.
So, yeah. If we move from a team that aren't very smart...
Yes.
There's 2 men wearing the team insignia. One team that are being smart is the Bengals. So they've tagged their safety, Jesse Bates, who's a really essential cog in their defense. I think that's a great move by Cincinnati, who usually don't do such
praise for a Bengals team. It is a rarity in any off-season.
I mean, they've given him the tag, so they've got more time to work out a contract as well. So it is smart. I mean, I I don't know what to say because it's not very Bengali.
There's that scene in The Simpsons where everybody sat round Homer Simpson. Wait a second, he's going to do something stupid. Now we start. The Bengals are going to do something stupid. Just wait.
Trading Joe Burrow away.
I got this hill of beans.
So, talk to me briefly about Aaron Rodgers and the situation there. I gather he's been offered an extension to try and spread the money he wants out over. Well, basically, he'd be playing till he's 58 years old, right?
That's according to ESPN. Yeah, it's a contract extension which should spread the money out, help them get, because they're still 27 million over the cap, and that, of course, doesn't include bringing Devontae Adams back. I think Bakhtari, elite running back Aaron Jones, and someone else have signed contract negotiations, basically putting the cap hit slightly further down the road. But yeah, something's going to have to happen. But yeah, they are desperately trying to keep it.
I know.
Literally,
we can end that bit by asking: does anyone think he's not playing in Green Bay next year? No.
The Denver rumours are getting a lot heavier.
Are they?
What I'm saying.
Why would you go to Denver when your best chance to win the Super Bowl is to stay in a terrible division?
Peyton Manning did it. That seems to be the only logical reason I can see. And everybody's saying Denver are a QB
you
away
wouldn't
from
have
success.
to play the 49ers in the playoffs.
That's true. That's true.
No, you'd have to play like the Chiefs and the Bills.
Well,
Bengals.
Rodgers might be right with that.
Maybe.
I literally don't care anymore.
No.
I could be
If he
honest,
moves,
but
we'll cover it now. I think
I'm so tired of it.
The first one to break was always going to be Gary.
I'm just so tired
I mean,
of
to be
it.
fair, the news of Aaron Rodgers is arsehole is still arsehole. So, let's see what happens. But I personally think he'll still be in Green Bay. They'll find some ridiculous way. I mean, to be fair, he's played with no receivers for years, other than Devontae Adams. So
he's got his mate Randy Cobb. That's all he needs.
Good old Randy Cobb.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, we should move on to the main topic of tonight's show, which is the...
Can I just say while we've got news? Gruden.
Did I actually look that sad? I felt like I looked really sad when he did that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Gruden is... he's called it unconscionable that the NFL wants to move his lawsuit to arbitration because he claims that what the content of his emails is not important as to why he was fired. It's more that the emails were leaked, which is true, but also it is making a mockery of the fact that what he said in his emails was absolutely disgusting.
So what he's saying is you can say what you like as long as no one ever gets to see it.
I think he's claiming the process is bad, ignoring the fact that what was released
Is also bad.
is pretty bad.
Did he add a tagline that said Happy International Women's Day?
Possibly. I mean,
Is he moaning about this during Black History Month as well? I mean,
look,
tick all the boxes.
he's waited for Black History Month to finish, luckily, before he's gone and said that the contents of his emails is not an issue. Although the next line in this Athletic report is the contents of his emails, and it's very much an issue.
Would you like to read that out?
I will not.
you can't gaslight the NFL. They're suing you. It doesn't work like that.
I mean...
That's
Yeah.
not important. Yes, it's very important.
Yeah, but the NFL do tend to whitewash over things when they want to. So it's just someone trying to do the same thing to them. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, and I think the emails were sent when he wasn't an NFL employee, and it's all arguments. But I mean,
He was still a human being for all of that.
I know, and quite frankly, in this case, I hope they both lose, NFL and Gruden. But they're both horrible organisations and people. But yeah, I'm sure we'll see him back on TV soon.
I would have thought so. Got to make some money from somewhere. Right, now we can move on to the main theme of tonight's show.
Oh, no.
Fuck me.
Post-mortem begins.
Yes, the post-mortem on the NFC. So north, south, east and west. We'll go division by division, team by team. John's going to fill us in on what we thought before the season, because none of us can remember, except one person who's going to remain very anonymous until we get to the NFC West.
It's almost like we left it to last for a reason.
Yeah,
I don't need to say anything.
that'd be a fucking relief. Right. So we're going to start with the NFC North, where Green Bay dominated once again. They had 13 wins, 5 more than anyone else in the division. Matt LaFleur's only lost, 4, 5, 6 games in that division, 7 games in that division in 3 years. As a coach of the Green Bay Packers, basically he's fine until he gets to the playoffs.
3-3-4, so he's lost 10 games in 3 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, regular season, he's an absolute superhero.
It must be one of the best career records to start in the first 3 years of anyone's career.
It was the best, wasn't it?
Was it the best? Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me. I don't have that in front of me, but it must be right up there. So we'll start with Green Bay. Obviously, ultimately, their season is disappointing. Several people, and I'm sure I was one of them, said I think they're going at least to the championship game, probably to the Super Bowl, and they could win it because Aaron Rodgers, because Devontae Adams, because, brilliant player.
The defense was better.
Yeah, the defense was brilliant. They've got fantastic player Aaron Jones. They've got AJ Dillon. They've got all of these things. They've got Randy Cobb. And the pieces looked to be there. And once again, they got to the playoffs. And, well,
I don't think we knew if Aaron Rodgers was going to be back when we did our predictions, did we? Because he was pissing around for ages last season.
He was hosting Jeopardy at the time.
Yeah, so we don't even know. I suppose we probably weren't even totally sure at the start of the season when we did our predictions if Rodgers was going to be there. But I think
we went on the assumption that he was going to be there. We can go back but we weren't sure, but we went on the assumption that he was going to be there.
So what did we actually say? Do you know?
Literally, the summary is: if Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, then division is theirs to lose.
And it turns out that was true.
For 16 games, for the 14 games he played in, of course, he was pretty much Aaron Rodgers, apart from one of them where he didn't bother.
First game of the season where he didn't
bother.
Do you know what? He was Aaron Rodgers, but he wasn't quite as exciting to watch as he has been in the past. Because he doesn't throw for as many touchdowns.
He's very conservative.
What did he throw for? 30-odd touchdowns? 34? Something like that?
I mean, that's a lot of touchdowns. But what you're saying is compared to 3 years ago.
It?
No.
It's not Brady touchdown-esque, is it?
No. He's
he
very
only
conservative.
threw for 3 picks or something.
He'd rather not throw intersections than throw big touchdowns.
Yeah.
And that's been the knock. Because, as John said, our summary said, if he plays, the division is theirs to lose. But also, if he plays, the playoffs are theirs to lose. And they do.
I thought they were generally in control of most games in a pretty poor division, like you say. And I don't think you really saw lots of massive comebacks out of Aaron Rodgers this year. There wasn't many moments where he put the team on his back and really, drove them over the line. I don't think he had to do that many fourth quarter comebacks this year. It seemed very controlled.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit, just very smooth.
Yeah, 37 touchdowns, 4 picks. Although the year before he had 48 and 5, so it's
conservative is what I felt it was this year.
It's functional because there's another thing to bear in mind as well as the rest of this division sucked.
And that is true, and there's a lot to be said for that. But as a review just of the team, I don't think it can end without saying this was a disappointment of a season for Green Bay because we knew they were going to win the division. They were obviously going to win the division, so they didn't overachieve. They barely met minimum target because you can win the division by 1 game or 5 games. You've still only met your target. If you can't go that next step in the playoffs, it's all for nothing.
Flopped.
So they must be regarded as a disappointment despite their season. Must be.
Yeah.
They were at times super disappointment. Like they were a super team who were very disappointing.
He's going to win 1 Super Bowl, isn't he?
Yeah.
It looks that way.
Half an Eli.
Half an Eli.
I think Paul's closer with Drew Brees.
No, I like that.
Half an Eli is just disrespectful.
Half a Plunkett.
And even I think he's a bellend, but I wouldn't call him half an Eli. God.
Eli was clutch in the playoffs.
He was clutch in the playoffs. If you melded those two players together, you'd be undefeated forever.
You'd have Tom Brady.
Oh, that's it. Okay. Anybody got anything to add on Green Bay? I think that they need desperately to extend Aaron Rodgers, and they need a solid draft class of young players to keep infusing this team with, because Randy Cobb is old, Devontae Adams might leave. The defense was much improved, but still needs pieces.
Tonyan was in and out at tight end.
Tonyan, they struggled once he wasn't available.
Yeah.
And also Jordan Love. If Aaron Rodgers goes, and he might, Jordan Love was not good. And he had, 3 games? 2.5 games.
Yeah.
Deer in the headlights.
He was no better than when they had Deshaun Kaiser backing up.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because Jordan Love was a first-round pick.
I mean, he was the reason that Rodgers was fucked off in the first place.
Upset possibly your best player of all time, certainly one of your best ever players, for someone who may not be very good. It seems poorly managed. So
when you say poorly managed as well, so they're free agents coming up. Their entire wideout room.
Yep.
Lazard, Valdez-Scantling, and Adams. Tonyan, their punter. Russell Douglas.
Fucking hell.
And Devontae Campbell.
It's going well then, isn't
And
it?
Kevin King. So basically, their cornerbacks, their wideouts, their punter, and their tight end.
Their wideouts could be any wideouts. They were just wide receiver 2 and 3 across the league.
Yeah.
And
They're not expensive to re-sign.
Equanimus St. Brown, or however you say it.
Equiminius St. Brown.
That's the guy.
His brother's better.
His brother is better, but he's still a decent player. Valdez-Scantling is good. Lazard is good. They're okay.
Yeah, they're not bad players. You wouldn't ever know without them playing on a team that doesn't have Aaron Rodgers. That's the point. But if you take Devontae Adams out of this team, I don't care that it's Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to be as good.
Oh, he's an elite.
Because you
receiver.
cannot cover Devontae Adams.
He's top 5.
You can. We saw it in the
Yes.
playoffs.
You cannot regularly
And
cover.
then Aaron Rodgers can't throw the ball to anyone else.
Or he won't throw. That's the problem. It's not can't. He won't throw to anyone else. Just doesn't trust him. And that doesn't work. You're not going to win this game on your own.
But yeah, he has become
always one.
This week's podcast brought to you by Dark Berry Tango.
He's become a crotchety old man, hasn't he, really? It's
A what?
just a miserable old twat.
Crotchety.
That's a word, isn't it?
But we were saying last season he just wants to go home and drink whiskey.
What he wants to do is go and get himself a haircut. I've had enough. Now he looks like old man Logan from the Wolverine films. It's not good.
But he's single now, isn't he?
You
So,
made fun of him for being old.
oh, but he's not.
With the oldest thing you could say. That boy needs a haircut.
Well, I am older than him, so
I think that was up in the air, John. There was, he put out his statement about, how things at home, being good, has helped him on the field, and there's a lot of love there. So it's all a little bit.
I couldn't care less what's going on in his own life. To be honest, I don't even know who it was. He was
Apparently they were in
Shailene Woodley.
an
Who?
unconventional relationship anyway.
Oh, fair enough.
What, do you like to introduce a goat? What was unconventional about it?
He's
Swingers.
an arsehole.
Right. Well, that seems like a good place to jump off from the back.
This is going to be a long
It's
podcast.
not. We're going to race through it because
The rest of this division is really easy to go through.
yeah, Vikings. So they ended up getting rid of Mike Zimmer, and we'll see how that goes. It was a disappointing season. It started disappointingly with many defeats, 4 in a row, I think, to start the year. Kirk Cousins had built a plexiglass house around himself, and a bit like Cole Beasley, made a stand which clearly upset management when there was already friction anyway. And apart from the highs of Dalvin Cook, I don't think any of the other players did that.
And Jefferson.
Yeah, but
Jefferson and Phelan were decent.
Thielen was injured. That was unfortunate. And
if
Kirk
Thielen had
Cousins
played
had a
more,
very
Jefferson
good
would have been
season.
better. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he had a
So
good
he
season.
might have been in a little box, but he was studying the playbook.
But this is
He-
the thing.
He performed really
We
well.
know he plays well, but they don't win. And that's a problem. There's no point playing well if you're not winning.
But he can't play every position, can he?
No, but I don't think he's an effective leader. I don't think he raises anybody's game.
I think this is a team that lent very heavily on its defense, and you had Daniil Hunter out again.
Yeah.
You had quite a lot of the pieces of that defense that got them to the championship game just not there.
Yeah.
Just really missing. And I agree. There's just something about that team where they have all the pieces. Stats wise, they've got great people, but you don't win on stats. So it'd be interesting to see what they do now. Now they've got the next graduate of the McVay School of Shyster.
Do you know what? I think this might be more about Zimmer than we think, and that kind of. I don't think they're very aggressive, as a team, the Vikings, and
No.
they should be, with the weapons they have, both sides of the ball. I think, if you gave Vrabel that squad, you'd see a better performance. I think a lot of it will come down to coaching.
I certainly think it was time for Zimmer to go, but I don't think it's easy to replace a coach as good as Mike Zimmer. So there's a good chance it works, and there's a chance it really doesn't work. Because don't forget, you've been there, 7 years, 8 years? Like, you've been there a long time. And
also, he looks shit out of ideas this season.
I think he was just frustrated that despite the talent that is on the team, it wasn't working for them. It clearly wasn't working for them.
They're a wildly inconsistent team.
Yeah.
Because literally, I'm looking at their schedule, and they beat the Chargers, the Packers, and then in the next 2 weeks, they lost to the 49ers and the Lions.
Yeah.
But then followed it up by beating the Steelers. I mean, they don't blow teams away. They if they lose by a score. And
Did they have the most one-score defeats of the season? I think they had
Maybe the Ravens.
Yeah,
Ravens are in a lot of
they
one-score
had
games.
a lot of one-score defeats. I seem to remember. Was it like 11 or something in the end? It was
8. Well, they finished 8-8.
No.
They didn't, 8 and 9. They finished under
8 and 9,
500,
so yeah.
and this was
Yeah,
what
sorry.
cost Zimmer his job.
But yeah, they had 8.
So they're not
one-score
far
games.
away. the Vikings.
No, they're not far away, and if they can hold on to the major pieces, that's fine. But just as a review, as Paul already said, this whole division is shocking, and the one team that could salvage it were the Packers, and they didn't because they shat the bed in the playoffs. So, moving on.
Just in terms of, we said I think the defense let that team down. Anthony Barr, Patrick Peterson, Sheldon Richardson, Xavier Woods, Nick Vigil, who's an okay linebacker, are all free agents. That defense is getting gutted further. So that's going to be, and bringing in an offensive head coach when you've got no defense, they're going to be hilarious to watch. Can't wait.
They're stuck with Kirk Cousins as well. He will be playing for them next year.
Yeah, can't afford it.
No, and that's fine because, as we've said, he actually performs very well, but he isn't a leader for me, and that leadership has been their biggest problem. I really feel it.
And they're $15 million over cap.
Brilliant. It's going well.
Good time to be in Minnesota.
Let's talk about another disappointing team, the Chicago Bears. So this was the Matt Nagy being booted out tour for the entire season. Nothing about the Bears this season made you think that they were going to finish above 500. Nothing. At no point did you think that. And that's from day one. What is the point? The Bears, I know Nagy made the playoffs twice with the Bears.
Coach of the year.
Yeah, but he did that at like 8-8 and 9-7.
I think Khalil Mack did most of that anyway.
Well, so it's not like he hadn't had some success, but the Chicago fans deserve better, and it's rare to say that because I don't support them, but
They're not great fans. They just whine all the time.
yeah, of course they do. So would you if your team was this bad for this long?
They just whine and they whine and they whine.
Who's the star of this team?
Justin Fields, maybe.
No,
I mean,
Justin Fields is
he
not.
has the potential to be. I don't
Yeah,
think he is.
but he's
yet.
not the star.
David Montgomery.
Yeah, David Montgomery, running back.
So running back who probably wouldn't make the top 10.
It should be Adam
now.
Robinson.
It should have been Allen Robinson, but he can't get out of there fast enough.
He's not very good, Allen Robinson.
You can't judge him.
I can judge him. I just decided that's what I'm on this podcast to do.
I disagree. I think Allen Robinson is good, and I think he's just been absolutely underutilised.
I felt sorry for him for like the last 3 years because all he does is run after overthrown balls, and it must be just so
It sounds like
demoralising.
a loser's attitude, that does. Like, other players play on bad teams for their whole career and post good numbers. I'm sorry.
Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah. Megatron.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not having that. Like,
I'm sorry, we're comparing MVP candidate Matt Stafford to Andy Dalton and Nick Foles and Justin Fields.
Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles, the Dalton line Andy Dalton.
Yeah, but Dalton line Andy Dalton, the Dalton line is fucking low now. like it's Nick Foles Super Bowl MVP was 5 years ago.
Even on bad teams, you can have stars. I'm
Yeah.
just not convinced Allen Robinson's as good as people thought he was. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think there's no kind of spark in this team.
No.
So even with the Vikings, you've got Justin Jefferson, you've got Adam Thielen, you've got Dalvin
Dalvin
Cook.
Cook, yeah.
You've got these players that would pretty much walk into any other team in the league. I'm a Giants fan, and I wouldn't take many players from Chicago. I couldn't think of a player I'd take from Chicago other than Justin Fields.
Why would you take Justin Fields, though? What made you think he's going to be?
Because I've got Daniel Jones, all right?
I don't even think they've got that right yet. I'm not sold at all. What did you say out of Justin Fields? Yes, he's got great athleticism, but he didn't look special.
He looked terrified.
Yeah.
I'm not going to I don't want to spend too much longer on Chicago because I don't think they're going to improve next season.
You don't think they're going to improve?
No.
No, I'm concerned about it as well. I don't.
Who's their new coach?
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't tell you.
No, I couldn't tell you. And we enjoy the game, and I have no idea. All I know is they replaced one guy called Matt with another Matt Eberflus. There you go.
Oh yes.
And they replaced the GM with another Ryan.
Who's
and it
the
just
defensive coordinator of the Colts? Wasn't they?
And it. What about that makes you think it's the right player, the right coach, for a player like Justin Fields? I know it's about who you bring in, but we've seen this not work so many times where the coach and the quarterback aren't on the same page, and I don't trust the Bears to have got this right.
So for me, the Bears have no plan, and if I then take us on to the next team, which would be the Lions, they sucked, but I like Dan Campbell. I like where that team's heading. At least they're trying something. They didn't lose games by huge amounts.
They did.
They lost some games by huge amounts, but they also lost some games by a field goal.
What was the pre-season summary, John, when you get a chance to find that? Because I would say we probably predicted them to win one or no games.
Jim just wrote, "This could be painful. I like the shade of blue they play in there."
So very helpful. Thank you, James. But I thought they might win one game. So for them to win 3 means they can't have been disappointing.
I think, Goff is a passable quarterback, and
he's not as bad as people say. He's just not explosive.
Exactly.
He's a game manager.
And he's absolutely fine, and he will be in the league for another 6 or 7 years, I think.
Before you move on from that, should we just, as a quick show of verbal hands around the table, who thought Jared Goff would be playing in the league longer than Carson Wentz? Because there's a very real opportunity for that to happen.
I would say yes.
I didn't. I thought
the Rams did. They picked him first.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought once I'd seen the two of them play for a couple of years, Wentz had a much longer career ahead of him.
I was never quite as down on Goff as some of you guys. I think he was. Maybe it's watching a few years of Jimmy G. It was very similar.
Been harshly treated,
similar level,
and he never gave up. I thought he did well this season.
He didn't do a lot wrong.
No.
He never does a lot wrong. A bit dull, but he doesn't do a lot wrong.
Yeah,
and I still don't give a shit about the Lions.
No,
one thing we did say they hired
terrible
Anthony Lynn.
Yeah,
and DeAndre Swift. When not injured, he was very good.
Much better. Yeah, absolutely.
So good.
And they found a wide receiver they could trust as well, which is, absolutely something they needed because they didn't have any weapons in the cupboard at all. So it took them half a season to trust. But
their defense is still terrible.
Though. Oh, it's still terrible. You can score on them, but they might just have enough to score back at you.
Considering Matt Patricia was there for 2 years, how he managed to make their defense worse, I really struggle with.
Because it's the Lions. Lions going to Lions.
Dom Capers is part of their defensive thing. And Antoine Randall L is their wide receivers coach.
Is he?
Antoine Randall L.
Yeah. Good old wide receiver. Likes him.
You look at their results. They lost to the longest field goal in history.
62-yard field goal to the Ravens, yeah.
They lost by 2 to the Vikings. They lost by 3 to the Browns, lost by 2 to the Bears, lost by 4 to the Falcons. There's 4 games there where you're a score away from winning them.
They also lost they lost by 38 points to the Eagles.
The problem is those stats don't tell you how many garbage points they scored. They were not in some of those games. Just because the stats show that, that's not necessarily the case.
I agree, and I think that's a fair point, but I also think that those close games show you that at least the players were playing for Dan Campbell, which I think is more than you might see out of a lot of teams we're going to walk through here. I don't think... the Vikings didn't play for Mike Zimmer. They were in some close games, but I would have said out of the 2 teams, the Lions were playing harder for Dan Campbell than the Vikings were playing for Mike Zimmer.
If I was drafted this season, I'd rather land on the Lions than the Vikings or the Bears.
It's not school, is it? I don't pay for effort. I pay for results.
I think there's more chance.
It might sound harsh, but
it's true.
If I was putting a bet on today, I would
Ask Calvin Ridley.
We were all avoiding that.
Apparently, he's mentioned he only bet $1,500
On.
Games whilst he was not playing.
Oh, really?
Well,
Yeah,
still not allowed though. That's the problem.
It's seen as insider trading essentially.
Yes, effectively so.
Let's move on to the
Right.
South.
Let's move on. NFC South. Tampa Bay won the division for the first time in bare time. No, they didn't win it last year.
South. Saints won it.
Sorry, of course, yeah.
No, this was
I
the
forget.
thing.
I forget the Saints were good.
They didn't win it. Last time they won it was like 2000 or something. It was a long time ago.
Is it 2010?
Well,
12
whenever.
years ago, something like
It was a long time ago, and everyone forgot they didn't win it the year before. 13 wins, same as Green Bay. They matched them, and again, ultimately, their season ended in disappointment. But it was always going to, because they were the reigning champions, and the chances of you repeating are not great. But still, Tom Brady had his best statistical season forever. It was mad. Gronk looked like Gronk, but slower. But still, Lenny Fournette turned up in bunches and then disappeared in bunches. And just about every star player contributed on this team, and you can't win every year. You can't. I could not find anything to fault on this team other than the fact they got to the end of the season and the star power has left.
But this team was built to win
And it did.
1 or 2 Super Bowls
Yep.
very quickly. And it won one, and now it's going to start falling apart a bit,
Doesn't matter. They're fine for 15, 20 years.
Because they won't be able to afford to keep everybody long term.
No.
Because players want to get paid during their career. So
Yeah.
some will have come at the end of their careers to win a Super Bowl. Others, now they've won a Super Bowl, will want to get paid. So there'll be a lot of change in the Bucs this year and next year, I think.
They've had some great memories along the way. I think that's how their fan base will see it.
I do as well. I mean, it's been all right for you Giants fans, hasn't it? 10 years since you've had any success. Clinging on to those memories. I agree. I think there's a lot of problems if Brady stays retired. They don't know who their quarterback is going to be. They're saying Kyle Trask,
Yeah.
but there's a reason why he was number 3 on the depth
There's
chart.
going to be a lot of problems if Brady doesn't stay retired. I'm not going to be happy.
And for me, the biggest question that's left is what happens to Bruce Arians. Does he really want to coach a young kid? Does he really want to do that after he just won a Super Bowl? I don't think so. I'm surprised he hasn't announced his retirement as well, to be honest.
I think he'll do another year. He doesn't want to be seen as Brady's little bitch, does he?
I don't think he cares now he's won, but maybe not. I see what you're saying.
No, I think he does care about that.
You think he does?
I don't think he wants to be seen as the part of the Brady experiment.
The Brady bunch.
Yeah,
Pay me all that money, I'll happily be part of the Brady experiment. I don't see what the problem is. Pick something from this Tampa team that was disappointing. What would you pick?
Ronald Jones, still not good enough. So the running game is still was okay, but it wasn't amazing. Fournette turned up in the playoffs, but apart from that, the run game still wasn't great. You couldn't trust any of them. So I think that's it was a problem for Brady a little bit actually.
on paper, that's one of the strongest running back rooms going. Fournette, Rojo, and
Bell.
Bernard and Bell. Yeah,
Yeah, that didn't really work, did it? Le'Veon Bell. Pointless.
I'm not sure Giovanni Bernard would make it into one of my strongest running back
no,
rooms.
but
It's just-
if you're looking for a
maybe from 5 years ago.
Don't forget,
but-
Giovanni Bernard was handpicked basically by Brady to play the James White, Rex Burkhead
Flexible,
role that he wants running backs to play. And when they were on song together, it actually worked. But he got injured. He had a big drop, and I can't remember who against, and it knocked the confidence. But they did flare up again later in the season. So you can see why he was there. But without Tom Brady, Gio Bernard is just another player with a great moustache.
I think if the Rams weren't in that playoff run, they'd have won comfortably. I feel it's just they came against a stronger team in the playoffs.
Yeah, which is what happens. Okay.
They got shut out by the Saints. And,
The 9-0 game.
The 9-0
Oh,
game.
yeah,
One of those.
Brady struggled against the Saints, didn't he?
Yeah, but
But ultimately, that didn't matter because the Saints, whilst finishing second in the division, only won 9 games. Another team who's lost their head coach, Sean Payton, has retired. He'll be back.
Yeah.
seems a sabbatical, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But if you want to talk about teams that are in cap hell and free agency hell and all the other hells you can get, this is the Saints.
Quarterback hell.
And a bit like we've just said with with the Bucks. The Bucks and the Saints were both terrible teams for a long time that have had sudden and really glorious success and could both now be heading back to being just nothing franchises. Because it's Dennis Allen, isn't it, who's taken the job with the Saints. Fine. But you really think Dennis Allen with Taysom Hill is going to be a winning combination?
I just imagine being part of a fan base who are thinking, God, if only we had Jameis back.
Well, he's there. He's there this year. He's
he's still there. I thought he was only here.
He's only on a 1-year deal, wasn't he? He might be there now. Free agency in a week or so's time, isn't it?
On there on a $1.5 million contract.
I mean, I don't know which quarterback you're best off playing. They've got Ian Book as well. Trevor Siemian, I think, is now a free agent. I think it's pull the name out of a hat. I don't think it matters because without Sean Payton masterminding it, I don't think it makes any difference.
I mean,
honestly,
you're losing your left tackle, one of the best safeties going in Marcus Williams. Oh God,
your best wide receiver still isn't playing.
They're saying Michael Thomas will be back, but why would you come back to play for this team?
He doesn't want to be there, does he?
No, he didn't want to be there last year, and he didn't play. End of. I don't think he'll play for them.
But if you cut him,
podcast dog is back.
If you cut him, it's only a $38 million cap hit.
Yeah, but they'll trade him.
Yeah.
Because they've got to be building up for the next big coaching appointment. They've got two or three down years coming now for the Saints. I really think.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be some lean years.
So for us, if we were doing a quick preview, we'd be saying so far the Bucs are in pole position to carry on despite losing Brady, because next down the list in the South are the Falcons, who we discussed prior to the start of this segment, have just lost their best young wide receiver. So you're back to having Kyle Pitts, because Cordell Patterson is a free agent, and he was their best contributor this season, if not their best player. Matt Ryan, they're committed to, and I think that's right, but he's not the same player he was 5 years ago. Of course he's not.
But you're not going to get anything better in this draft class or free agency.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad that they've stuck with it. I think it's the right thing to do. But they're going to have to spend capital bringing someone in behind him.
Do you know what? I think Matt Ryan's still a really good quarterback.
He is a really good quarterback.
And I don't think they're actually that far away. I think they just need to really invest in the defence. Because Matt Ryan scored points last year. What was their average points per game last year, John?
I love the way you've asked John, because you can't be asked to look it up yourself.
We've got Stato.
Yeah, I thought John was our stat man.
No, bear me.
Why is that not a jingle on this show?
Yeah, I know. John needs to start wearing a dressing gown.
Yeah. He did talk to me once about scat, but I think it was something else. He's giving me the finger. How ironic.
Basically, I don't know.
Brilliant. I'll look up that information for you. They won 7 games.
They won 7 games.
They scored points.
At one point, they did play the Cowboys and the Patriots over a 2-game stretch and scored 3 points and conceded close to 70. So, points, they were an absolutely garbage team. But
their defence was horrendous.
The defence, it's poor.
We watched it and it was
poor. We felt we could have made runs on that defence.
They made the Jets look serviceable.
I don't know what we said about them before the start of the season. I have not looked. I'm deliberately doing this without looking. But I'd imagine this is sort of what we predicted for them this year.
Still in rebuild mode, under no pressure in what could be a competitive division. Yeah. We had them finishing last, actually.
Well, they didn't finish last because Carolina only won 5 games. They've cycled through 47 quarterbacks under Matt Rule. They've clearly got the wrong man in charge. You can snip that bit for when he wins the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah.
David Tepper wanted Deshaun Watson. He wanted every other good quarterback going. He doesn't really believe in Matt Rule, I don't think. They got Cam back. Don't forget, this is the team that brought Cam back, and he rushed for 2 touchdowns on his return, and they never won a game with him at quarterback, running back, whatever it was he was playing. This was an awful, awful season for the Panthers. I mean, we've talked about the Lions; they were bad, and then the Bears, they were bad. This team.
Do you know what?
Shocking.
Like, they actually started the season okay as well.
Yeah, don't forget, Darnold led the league in rushing touchdowns after week 4.
He looked okay. And you thought, do you know what? Darnold is finally going to get the chance to prove he could be
A
an
franchise
NFL quarterback, and he got injured. And when he came back, he was just
He was rattled.
awful.
And as soon as he gets rattled, it's over. And that is why he's going to end up as a career backup, because you can't trust him for more than a handful of games.
McCaffrey just isn't the same player. They just want to trade him now, don't they? Because he's just not. They want to get some value for him, while somebody else thinks that he might still be the same player. But since he's come back, he just hasn't been the same, has he?
No.
No, he's. We said
Because he was everything good about that team.
It was the only thing good about that.
Yeah,
he
CMC is
allowed
back,
so many things, didn't he?
and CMC is back, and with it returns the Panthers' offense.
Yeah.
Darnold has potential which needs unlocking, and he must be pleased to be rid of Gase.
Tell Jim wrote that. He's
That was
still
me.
a Darnold lover.
That was me.
And he probably was pleased to be rid of Gase, but it's not the coach.
No.
It's Sam Darnold. This is who he is.
I don't know.
What's he been in the league now? 5 years?
I
4 years.
2018 draft. No? Yes.
Yeah, all right. So, and they don't forget they picked up his 5th-year option before the start of the season. They're paying him. He is there. They are paying him, or he's expensive. But he's not the answer. He's not going to be a solid week-to-week quarterback ever. This is who he is. He will have games that he can win for you because he's got talent, but he's also going to have games. I mean, did he throw 3 consecutive picks in one game? Was that him?
Yeah.
And it's like the guy. He's the seeing ghost guy. He will always be the seeing ghost guy, and he is seeing them every week. He's taking them with him to half of these grounds.
Yeah, I mean, I have reservations because every quarterback who goes there just sucks. Quite frankly, I do wonder if there is a coaching issue, because
I think there's a new owner issue.
possibly.
I want
No patience.
new
from David
toys.
Tepper,
New
but
toys. Yeah.
That's how people like him have become successful in business. They believe, go out, spend the money, demand, and he probably will. But I don't know what they're supposed to do. I think the Panthers are set for another bad year.
This could be quite a garbage division in 2022.
It certainly looks that way, does it not? It's going to be a struggle to be excited about this division, other than the fact that there could be some terrible, terrible results to look forward to.
Well, should we take a break and come back and talk about more garbage and go to the East?
Can we try and put the podcast dog on a leash?
Yes. Yeah, we'll come back and do come back for the East.
Oh, that's it. And we're back, and it's time to look at the NFC least. Now, get your impersonation voices ready. Mick McCarthy, what do we think?
Busted.
Mick McCarthy was
Bastard.
predicted to fail epically, I believe, by us.
No, because the
Well-
team he has is so good, it's really hard for him to fail.
In this division. This was
In
my
this division.
caveat. Right.
But literally, I think we said they're talented enough to take the division. We say that every year, and then they Cowboys it up. And that's what they did.
Well, they did win the division. They won 12 games.
Oh, yeah. We and then what happened in the playoffs?
They Cowboys it up. And this is why
They really cowboyed it up.
they really did. This is why Jerry Jones hasn't seen his team even get to a Super Bowl since 1996, and they won
Yeah.
it. And the guy's like 97 years old, and he's running out of patience. I'm amazed that Mike McCarthy still has a job, because I thought it would be one and done. I thought it was extremely disappointing. I thought they'd get Sean Payton in if he wanted out of Saints, and nothing's happened.
Is there placeholdering him till next year when Peyton becomes available?
This was his second year, wasn't it?
Was it his second year?
Yeah.
Well, still, I can't believe he's not been fired.
First year was the COVID year.
Because I know, so it was. I
doubt.
know they won 12 games, but when were they very good? Dak didn't look like the same player. Their wide receiver group was brilliant on paper, but was it that good, really? I mean, Gallup got injured, and that made a big difference, but I don't know. Was it outstanding? And they're about to, Gallup is a free agent. Murray Cooper's being traded or cut to save on the cap. Then you've just got CD Lamb, and on his own, he's not a Jamar Chase.
It felt very much like they were building a win now team, but forgot to win now.
A win sometime.
They were very good against the Eagles, the football team, and the Giants.
Yeah, so that's 6 wins or 5 wins. I think they lost one of those.
Nope, six wins.
6 wins in the division. So they swept the division, which means they only won 6 out of the rest of their games. And I'd be willing to bet that they probably didn't beat anybody with a record over 500 out of the rest of those teams.
The other teams they beat were the Chargers. They beat them in week 2. Panthers, Patriots, Vikings, Falcons, Saints.
Yeah, so okay.
Like
So Patriots and Chargers.
They beat the Pats in overtime.
Yep.
Saints.
And the Chargers, they won 2017.
They won 9 though, didn't they?
They did. They were technically over.
They did beat the Falcons 43-3. Like when this isn't a team that occasionally wins big. Like they beat the Eagles 41-21.
Yeah.
They beat the Giants 44-20, and they beat the football team at home 56-14.
Christ!
And then the final game in Philadelphia, they beat the Eagles 51-26. Although that was the Eagles B team. But
yeah, I'm always disappointed by the Cowboys because I always have high expectations of the Cowboys. So I don't know if that's a fair thing or not because it's not like they've been world beaters every year. But I thought that they could continue to build on some success. I think the coach is the weak link. And now it might be too late. Zeke, all their money is tied up in Zeke. And he's not that good anymore. Tony Pollard is a better running back right now.
Sue Pollard's a better running back.
at the start of this,
they're both even. You know,
Yeah.
I think Zeke isn't the same player he was 3 years ago, but he's still very, very good running back. And he does deliver some good numbers still. He still delivers nearly 100 yards a game.
I know, but you're not going to win many games because of Zeke. No, it used to be that
I
you
get that,
could.
but you know, when you've got the receiving core they've got
Yeah.
there, are you expecting Zeke to carry the whole game on his back?
No.
He's still got an aura around him. He's still someone you
still
need to
1,000
plan
yards.
for.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and they're better with him
10 touchdowns.
than without him. But he just doesn't look like, okay, we can hand the game to Zeke. And I think that's what they need occasionally. And it's not there now. I really don't think it's there
It's
now.
a passing league. You know,
Yes.
Unless you are a catching back, you don't see the same numbers out of running backs anymore because it's not just, unless you're at the Ravens, it's not just pound it, is it all the time?
Oh, if only it was pound it all the time. That'd be amazing.
I wouldn't be doing a podcast if it was pound it all the time. Fuck that.
What John does do is pound it all the time.
Moving on from pound it all the time.
But yeah,
The smell.
but the thing is, at the start of the season, we have to judge them on paper, don't we? Because that's what we have. And on paper, Dallas are a brilliant-looking team.
You're looking at me like I'm not going to mention the fact that Americans were confused by the name of Poundland.
You're not going to be battle hardened coming out of that division, are you? That is a problem.
Yeah, it's
Hey, the division sucks.
So they played warm-up games against absolute turd all year.
Well,
and then
let's
you went
talk
and played
about
some proper
These
teams.
3 teams. That are,
What, in just one go?
well, no, we'll talk about them one after the other. But we'll start with the Eagles. They made the playoffs. They found their quarterback of the future. Screw you, Jim. You're not here to argue with me.
Oh, by the way, Zeke was playing on a partially torn PCL injury for 13 games this year.
Yeah, whatever.
So 1,000 yards with basically a busted knee. It's still pretty
10
impressive.
touchdowns.
I've been doing my job with a partially dislocated finger. And what?
Well,
I'm just saying.
you should have some sympathy then for your fellow injured man.
No one's called you shit, have they?
Well, I've got some clients actually. I think you'll find they have said that.
You should listen to the other podcast I do on.
False teeth.
the Dental Laboratory podcast. That's something I wish to bring you guys into. Absolutely. Right, the Eagles. So, as I was saying, I think they're set up. I was happy to promote the Eagles having a good season. I really feel, and again, I haven't looked, that I would have promoted them having a good season. What did we as a podcast surmise? Because I don't know the answer. But surely we must have thought they were going to be competitive. Pieces were there.
Actually, our summary was, at least it's only 18 weeks until next season.
Fair enough.
Devontae Smith looks great if they can get him the ball. Jalen Reagor, coming off rookie year, will look to kick on.
And didn't.
No, that was a big disappointment.
It's just made the fan base kick off.
And at the end, at least Ertz is still there. So we completely bungled the Eagles
Quite
this
a
year.
few of you were quite big on Miles Sanders as well, who is terrible.
Oh, well, no one. I don't think anyone on this table was big on Miles Sanders.
No. They were running back
Well,
by
last
committee, and it worked for them. And can we just now put this final thing to bed? The quarterback is doing a really good job.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think you're on the wrong table to have an argument about that.
No,
'cause,
I know he's not here.
yeah.
But
You're
somebody,
not going to argue with any of us three. I think he's great.
yeah, I don't get it. I don't know what he
You
feels
look
the
at
need
some
to
of the
see.
other people that are supposed to be similar in ilk to him. You know, the likes of Justin Fields.
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts has achieved way more in his early career.
yeah.
You know, you can go around the league and go, right, you know, is he, you know, better than who's at the Jets? That young little action man boy,
Cac Wilson.
Zach Wilson. That's the one. But you know, who would you take, Jalen Hurts or Zach Wilson?
Jalen Hurts.
Tua or Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts.
Oh, I don't know. I like Tua. I think he's.
Yeah,
he's
I
on
like
great-
Tua, but I'd take Jalen Hurts
I would take Jalen.
because I want to win
Oh,
games.
yeah, Jalen Hurts.
You wouldn't take Jalen Hurts over Kyler Murray, but apart from that, you know,
I don't know the attitude. I might be tempted.
I'm waiting for the wrath of Jim in response.
Yeah, maybe.
he won't listen.
I don't know what their free agency list looks like. Does anybody want to tell me what their free agency looks like?
John?
Because
I've got it.
the Eagles, bearing in mind we've just discussed the fact the Cowboys are going to lose some serious pieces, surely they have a chance to catch up. It's 3 games they've got to bridge the gap, but they've got a chance to catch up. And if anyone in this division is going to do it next year, it's got to be them.
It's got to be Eagles.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't expecting it to take you this long to look this up, if I'm honest. This is a problem when James isn't here, even though we've just slated him. 'Cause he'd have had those fingertip stats.
The Eagles, I don't think
No, I mean
they're definitely the second best team in that division. You know, the commies and the Giants are nowhere to be seen.
We're not calling them the Commanders, I refuse.
Sure, they're not losing a
No.
lot.
No, they're not.
So
They lost a lot of their veterans in the last 2 years, didn't they?
yeah.
It's mainly just losing
Brandon Graham,
veterans again.
Fletcher, Cox.
Nope.
Oh,
Nope. They're staying. Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, of the
I did say.
Brandon Graham. They're
I think I said him as well.
You do.
but no, of their veterans, they're staying. They're staying. Yeah.
Ryan Kerrigan.
I thought a
Steve-
couple of them were going to retire.
Keeping the O-line together is massive.
I'm sorry, Greg Ward is going. I know you were a
what?
fan.
I am a big Greg Ward fan, absolutely.
And
Who isn't?
Boston Scott's no longer going to be there, so you know.
God damn.
What are you going to do for special teams plays now?
That 15 yards.
They'll
a
use
season's gone.
Kenneth Gainwell.
Who didn't? That's all we need
He
to
did
know
all
about
right.
him. Talking about the team we're not going to refer to as the Commanders because it's a terrible name.
They are the most franchise going. They just. I was really disappointed with Chase Young's second season.
Yeah.
Injured, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the whole
So
team,
He wasn't.
disappointing,
He
but-
wasn't. He wasn't good before he got injured.
the whole team for me fell apart in game 1 when Fitzmagic went down injured. I was
Took all the
devastated.
enjoyment out for
It
you.
really killed the season for me, to be honest with you.
We're going to go with Tyler Heineke. All right then.
Yeah, who has had some good games and some off games and has made himself a career as the new Fitzmagic. He's
think
going to
they'll
be a
be-
backup forever.
I think they'd be delighted they won 7 games,
So do I.
Yeah.
if I'm honest.
I don't know how they got to win 7 games. There's again that question I asked with Chicago. Who's the star here?
Chase Young.
Terry
Terry
McLaurin.
McLaurin.
Yeah, scary Terry.
Antonio Gibson.
Antonio Gibson came on really, really strong. In fact, their running back room in general, when one didn't perform, the other one stepped up. They did have some pieces. Their defence was what was letting them down a lot compared to where it had been the year before.
That's where they've invested a
Yeah.
lot, yeah.
And now,
Especially with a defensive coach as well. Defensive
Yeah.
head coach.
Riverboat Ron. But now they're scouring the league for a trade partner for a quarterback because that's what they feel is missing.
The scattergun approach.
Apparently.
If you ask every girl in the club out, one of them will go home with you.
Oh, that feels like a nice spot for Jimmy G, that does.
Is he an upgrade over Heineke?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
A million times
Yeah.
yes.
Heineke was great, like the season before in the playoffs when no one had any tape on him.
are they
I mean,
not?
I don't think
They're not the
Heineke.
same player. They're just wildly inconsistent players. The ceiling for Jimmy might be slightly more, but
Yeah,
they're just
the
wildly
floor-
inconsistent players.
The flaw on Heineke is like he can be awful.
Yeah, okay. I can't argue it. I don't see that Jimmy G is a massive upgrade. I don't think you suddenly become a division winner with Jimmy G in this team.
You win more games than you do with Taylor Heineke.
Maybe not in most divisions, but but in this one,
You got to remember, the only good thing we had about us was our cornerbacks, and they're going.
So the only thing the football team had to achieve this season.
I'm not calling them that either.
No, okay. The only thing the Red Hogs.
Redskins.
No, we're not allowed to call them that anymore. The only thing the Red Hogs had to achieve this season was to come up with a new team name for their franchise. That's all they had to achieve. Like, nothing else mattered. It did not matter. They could have called themselves the Washington Riverboat Rons, and that would have been better than the Commies, which is terrible. So we do have to come to an agreement on what we're going to refer to them as next year, because
Go Commandos.
the Washington Go Commandos. That's a strong starter for one. But they failed to do that. They didn't even get the years they won the NFL titles correct on their logo. Like, this is the worst run franchise. Dan Schneider's in all sorts of trouble again. It's just going to be another abject year, having followed something where it was disappointing, because they would have won more games with Fitzmagic. They would have won more games with Fitzmagic.
Can I ask you what the prediction was, what the review was for the Houston Texans?
Houston Texans? Yes, it was a wet fart noise.
I'd like to predict wet fart noise for the commies for next season, if that's okay.
I suspect it might be the same. Speaking of wet farts, the New York Giants.
Oh, no, we're not wet fart. We're the wet shart.
Oh, Jesus. So you won 4 games.
How?
I don't know. This was terrible.
We beat the Eagles, and the Raiders, playoff-bound Raiders,
The
Super Bowl contending.
They were contenders. They did make the playoffs. I mean, I wasn't wrong.
All 32 teams are contending.
When I would like to point out, when you guys mocked me harsh for saying that, you all said they won't make the playoffs. You actually all said that.
Yeah.
And I was right. So I'm just saying they were contending in your face. Now, moving on. The Giants.
We're not.
Can we draw a line under the fact that this isn't all on Daniel Jones? He was actually one of the better players on the team this season. He has too many issues to be a franchise face at the moment.
It's what Joe Shane said.
But it wasn't on him.
I think Joe Shane hit the nail on the head with this.
Joe Showian.
Joe Schwoon hit the nail on the head. You've got a player who every season has a new head coach, a new offensive scheme, a new OC. Of course he's going to be inconsistent.
Yeah. You've got to put some faith in him, which is what it looks like you're going to do. Mainly because
no one else wants to join the shit show.
Well, Davis Webb is our backup quarterback now.
Well, you had Big Mike Glennon, who came in and was one of the worst quarterbacks I have ever seen. I mean, he made Nate Peterman look competent.
I forget. We had Jake Fromm
running a
racism score. Jake from
I'll tell you what,
center.
the only thing with Mike Glennon, he would put your snood game to shame, wouldn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I could not believe Mike Glennon still had a job. It was just...
Yeah, he's Mike Glenn gone now.
He should be.
God.
It just... I wanted to find something nice to say about the Giants, because I feel like I slag them off every week. I've got nothing.
Defense was right for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then you got excited about it, and then it got bad again.
Blake Martinez got injured, and that ruined us.
What do you think of Saquon's performance when he was there?
Injured man doesn't play very well. It's not news.
And what do you do about it?
Do everything you can to make him healthy or fuck him off.
A reasonable response as ever. I thought that when he did play, he still just looked like he shouldn't be playing.
Our line's not good. And again, if you've got an injured man with...
Sure.
I think it was... They should have just wrapped him in cotton wool or done something different with him, because he didn't look ready. It wasn't the right atmosphere for it.
Now, as well, when he came back, he had a Mike Glennon quarterback. So you're just like, well, we know he can't throw it. Let's just stack the box. Yeah. And actually, Saquon is a a good catching running back. And we can't do that now because we've got literally like the 2 worst quarterbacks I've ever seen playing in New York. It was so disappointing.
What, Daniel Jones and Mike Glennon?
No, Glennon Flom.
Oh, okay. Where would Daniel Jones be? Would he be the 3rd worst quarterback you've seen play?
No, because I remember Geno Smith.
I think that's harsh.
I remember Colt McCoy.
He's better than probably 2 of those.
Yeah. But he's not better than Daniel Jones.
I don't know. Is he not? He's won more games in his career. He won 2 games this year.
No, How many games did he win for the Giants? None. So I'm saying I'm not judging him on his career. I'm judging him on his performance for the
How many games
Giants.
did he play for the Giants? 4?
Like, yeah,
I
but
love John's passion.
I know. Well, I
I'm
like
just
the
saying.
passion. I like the passion. I
you
have
know,
no problem with
it's just awful.
that.
But
it's been
There's no point
poor
arguing how
time.
much we suck. We suck.
I think
Yeah.
it's just really disappointing all the time. It's just like,
That is the
you
thing.
know,
with
you
Giants.
invest in something, and whatever you invest in is shit as well. Like,
The
you go out
thing-
and get new wide receivers, and they're not very good. And you
That should
overpay
have
for
been-
them.
That should have been a good wide receiver core.
Just
but the quarterbacks
overpay
weren't
for 'em.
capable.
I think what
You've
I
got no
like.
cap space either.
I like what the new team are doing. Just come in and burn it down. None of this soft reset. Just burn it to hell. That's what they needed to have done 3 or 4 years ago.
At some point, you've got to have a coach for more than 2 years.
And we're setting the stall out for that now.
At some point, but is it Brian Dable? Like I've said already, I don't know what makes you think he's going to be the one. You needed
I think he's the one who's going to get more than a year. I'm not saying he's our coach moving forward, but he's the guy who's going to get more than a year. Because,
Terrifying place to be in. Like,
but they've already set
like you've
the-
literally just hired Dabble, and you're like, I'm just gonna have a little dabble, and it might be over in a year, it might be 2. But I don't think he's the coach of the future. Brilliant.
This is not
Yeah,
ideal.
Other than we sign a coordinator from somewhere else who's shit, and they win 4 games and we get rid of them.
It's New York. Just say, do what you want. You've got 5 years. Get someone you actually want.
I don't know if they were that popular a destination.
The fan base wanted Dable.
Are you confident that next season can be better?
no.
No, next season's
But
going to be
we've already
worse.
said it's going to be we're gonna have some painful years because that's what it's going
Just
to.
had all the painful years.
Yeah, but
But
we, quite frankly, like to me, Gettleman deserves to be in The Hague. Like literally, I want him locked up forever. The fact that he got to be on the pitch at the end of the season, like waving to the fans,
Celebrating his
like
retirement.
you're like, mate, you've killed this franchise for years. We had the only good thing about us at the start of the year, end of last year, was our defence, and you went and brought in players who don't fit our scheme. So we've now lost our defensive coordinator, who's gone to the Raiders. We've got brought in some new coordinators from various teams, like the quarterbacks guy from the Chiefs. There seems to be some thought in the coaching, but I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with the team. Our best players, Bradbury, who is available for a trade because he earns the most money. So
it felt like
I feel like we've talked enough about the Giants. They're shit. Move on.
Gettleman's recruitment strategy seemed to be like an Impractical Jokers sketch. It felt like someone was in another room. Bring in Logan Ryan.
All right. I mean, for me, this was the worst division in sports again, because whilst the Cowboys did beat up on a lot of people, all those people were the other shit teams in their division. And
They're flat track bullies.
yeah, and I just...
And luckily, they play in a division that's a very flat track.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Last one then. The West. The NFC West. Now, Gary, over to you. Because when we did our pre-season predictions, you sat here, not here, but you sat in the doghouse, or wherever it was we sat. No, I think we did them separately from home still because of COVID.
No, we did it.
We did it in the doghouse.
Did it in
Right.
the dog-
You sat in the doghouse and you said, they've got Matt Stafford. I think the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. Take it away.
Well, I wasn't going to bring this up. But Ben, now you've mentioned it. So I think the reason why I said they would win the Super Bowl is because I thought they were the only team that were going to beat the Bucks, actually. And that's what proved to be the case. And they should have won that game easier than they did. They started bottling it, didn't they? But they had all the pieces, didn't they, at the start of the year, and then they added in the season.
Yeah.
Now, I thought that before they went and got Von Miller and before they went and got Odell
OBJ,
Beckham.
yeah.
So,
But what you didn't think, and what nobody thought, is that Cooper Kupp would be this good.
I think also Robert Woods getting injured was a really pivotal moment for a number of reasons.
getting Beckham at that point
Yeah.
was a great piece of management.
They never missed a beat when they lost Robert Woods, and we thought they would because we sat on our podcast and said, well, now Cooper Kupp will get covered more, and it will definitely be a thing. And within a week, they got OBJ, and they just carried on. For me, the Rams were deserved champions because they were the most improved, best, least disappointing. Like, you can't find anything bad other than, all right, they slipped back against the Bucks a little bit. Well, that was probably the most disappointing time of their season. They play in an awfully difficult division, like the best division in football. We've just talked about the worst. And, okay, they won one fewer regular season game than the Packers and the Bucks, but what does that matter?
Everybody in that franchise is bought into the same vision. And that vision is that we don't take young talent, we go and get what we can, we build a winning mentality. And I think in the division that you're in, the Cardinals tried to do a Rams light, didn't they?
Yes.
And it didn't quite work out for them, but they tried to do something similar. They went and got a load of veterans as well. The Niners with Lynch and Shanahan have a very consistent way that they are approaching their strategy. Slightly different, like heavier run game, etc. We'll just draft some young running backs, injure them, draft some more, and we'll invest in the defense. But I think what you see throughout this entire division, apart from the Seahawks, who are just trying to hang on to former glories and just getting worse and worse, which is hilarious. But the rest of them all have a clear way forward. And I think it's going to be a really difficult division for a few years to come. And I don't think you're ever going to see a number one seed come out of this division in the next 2 to 3 years because the division's too tight.
Taking games off each other. Does anybody have anything negative to say about the Rams?
Sorry. Sorry.
Jesus, you have one job, speak into the mic.
Because actually, we mentioned, they picked up Ellis Jones in the third round, who was brilliant.
Yeah. In
the playoffs, just absolutely, just lockdown linebacker.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. So even
they won't have had a first round pick for 6 years.
Yeah,
was Goff their last one?
But the Redskins, and they were the Redskins at the time, did this back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And they won 2 Super Bowls in like a 5-year stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be the next longest stint since the Redskins didn't pick in the first round.
Sure.
So this has been done in football before.
Yeah. Like you say, they're not investing in youth, they're investing in good now. And there's a very good chance they could repeat.
But Sean McVay has driven a great culture there.
Yes.
And you can, he looks like a bit of a muppet on the sideline, but he's a young guy and he clearly can get cut through with some of these big players.
Yeah, it clearly works for him. A player that needs someone maybe like a McVay is Kyler Murray at the Cardinals, who is quietly, but not so quietly, kicking up and basically saying, I want all the money and I want all the players and I want a say. Now, Arizona only finished a game back from the Rams in this division. But for me, the most disappointing thing about them this season is the fact that they were 8-0.
They were like 11-1, weren't they?
Yeah,
or 10-1.
And if you look at Cliff Kingsbury's record all the way back through college, in the second half of seasons, he hasn't got a single winning record. Ever. And this is a real problem. They peak way too early in the season and they've got no way of carrying that on. They limped across the line. Well, they win one of their last 6 games or something.
They got to 10-2 and then finished 11-6.
Yeah, I mean that is terrible.
And in that time, they lost to the Rams, Colts, Seahawks, and the Lions.
Yeah. And these are problems because it's the same the year before.
And beat the Cowboys, proving 2 points.
Tyler was injured for a couple of those games.
But they won two out of 3 games that he was missing. They won with Colt McCoy. That's what I was saying earlier. And this is my thing with Kyler being one of the most disappointing things for me is that, yes, he's clearly a really talented player, but there is definitely something there about him. He's not like not a leader in the way that Kirk Cousins maybe isn't a leader, but is he just petulant? There's something that doesn't quite stack up. Like, he wants to be the star. And I said this last week when we first discussed the Kyler Murray problem. Tom Brady didn't win 7 rings by saying, give me all the money. He won 7 rings by saying, get me some players, keep me upright. That's what he did. And then the money will come in its own time. And Kyler is basically saying, I can go and play baseball and earn a load of money, so give me the money.
$25 million plus sponsorships deals.
Yeah.
Do you need to earn more than $40 million a year?
Well, this is my point,
Right.
and I just don't like the signal. And for me, that's the most disappointing thing to come out of this year. The AJ Green thing didn't really work. The JJ Watt thing hasn't really worked because they're older and they've got injured, and it just hasn't paid off. Watt was playing well when he played, but what did he play? 6 games, 7 games?
DeAndre Hopkins getting injured killed their season.
Absolutely made a massive difference. And again, this should be a highlight for Kyler that you need these players around you, because when they're not there, your team can't win, even though you are very good.
I'm just looking at their results. Strangely, they are 3-5 at home, but 8-1 away. They're better on the road.
Okay.
I don't know. I've done no research into this. It's just strange that
A podcast
we always go on
research
about how home advantage.
Yeah.
And actually, for the Cardinals, it's not an advantage.
They play in the desert.
We struggled to win there as well when we played there instead of the Levi's due to COVID.
They play in the desert. I wouldn't want to play football in the desert.
Well,
It's just where they are. I mean, it's the nature of where the city is. You don't get.
They should be used to it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
They were St. Louis. They relocated to the desert.
Let's
been a
talk
while.
about a team that is very close to someone's heart at this table, and that is the San Francisco 49ers. 10 wins, made the playoffs.
Shanahan out.
Well,
Start of the season, I believe I said that, didn't I?
in the toughest division in football, and it is, this was respectable, but still felt disappointing.
It
Where
was.
do you sit?
I think me and Jim will probably look at it differently, like normal.
Shock.
But
But we don't want Jim's opinion because he couldn't be bothered to be here.
I think with the Niners, it's just so close to being really, really good. Debo was just amazing.
Incredible.
And like Ayuk started getting better. I think I'd just like to, Jim loves, big guys wrestling, on the line, doesn't he? Whether offensively or
Yes, he
defensively, he loves it. He'd like to oil them up and get some popcorn. But
He texts me to say he loves big sweaty men.
exactly. Whereas I would like to see a bit more out of our offense from this offensive genius head coach we're supposed to have.
It does always seem to be, let's get Debo the ball in some outlandish way,
Yeah,
and
and
no one will notice the rest.
I just don't have a lot of faith that in high-scoring games we can keep up, and that might be to do with Jimmy. I think, obviously we've got Trey Lance looking very, very likely to be in and playing next year. So I just don't know. I don't know where we are. I think either we're going to be heading into a few years where we are extremely competitive, or we're going to level off and be a bit mediocre, and within a couple of years we'll start to see it change again. But I think it's a bit of a crossroads with this quarterback change, if I'm honest.
Do you know, you said earlier about, check out Kirk Cousins' record. You might not want him, but he wins. All Jimmy G does is win. That's all he does. Like, what else does the guy have to do? All he does is win.
Yeah, but Kirk Cousins throws for a lot more yards and a lot more touchdowns than Jimmy G. Jimmy G will throw for like 1.5 touchdowns a game.
But out of the two, I'd say Jimmy G is more clutch.
I don't know.
Yeah, I would say so.
He's got an injury record like Tyrann Mathieu probably was muted to be.
Yeah, I'm clearly getting my players mixed up. I don't know. I see that it's going to be Trey Lance's show. I'm just not sure that makes you better next year.
I think I'm not sure it makes us better next year. Like I say, I think we'll get 2 years of it, and then if it hasn't worked out, then things could change.
I don't know if you'd agree with me as a fan, but everything felt like almost they were expecting to lose to Green Bay.
Oh no, we never expect to lose to Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, like ever. Like it's just funny, but no, I think once we get into playoff football, actually, I think we're very competitive because games get tighter, and our defense is that good and that aggressive, and we are a very big team. So we are a very physical team, both offensively and defensively. We try to hurt people, not in a kind of Sean Payton kind of way, but we try and make the game physical
by being in bizarre films.
Yeah, but you say that in 5 years' time, we're watching Adam Sandler play Shanahan. It's going to be great.
But we do. We try and make the game physical. We try and tire the opposition and all that kind of stuff. And I would like to see a bit more dynamism in our offense. So, I'd like to see us score 30 points more often.
Dynamism. I don't feel very dynamic right now. Dynamism. This is my thinking with the Niners, right? So you finished 2 games back from the Super Bowl champions. You made it into the playoffs. The problem with that position is it's a bit of a, like, okay, that's kind of what we expected. Like, we make the playoffs, and once you're there, you've got a chance. Next year, you could finish in the same 2 games back and not make the playoffs, and that then becomes a massive problem because Shanahan, for me, hasn't done enough to be long-term secure yet.
I'd like to see us be consistently in the playoffs rather than this good, bad, or good, average, good, average, good, average. I know it's not easy to do.
But you could easily see that with the right luck and the quarterback change working, you could win 14 games, right? You could. But you could also lose 4 more games because your players get injured a lot, and then you've only won 6 games. And then what do you do with Shanahan? Because you wouldn't say that's his fault, but...
There's one key thing with the Niners, which, when you look at some of the other teams and how they're impacted, you're not losing a lot in free agency. So most of the core of the team's still going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you get Manuel Mosley back.
yeah.
And
you're not losing a huge part of your team in the coordinators.
We do need to fix secondary if we're going to stay competitive.
And as well, like, it feels like a good time to make a change because in the division, the Cardinals look toxic, and the Seahawks are just determined to shoot themselves in the foot.
Well, let's talk about them now they've come up.
Go to the thing I feel with the Seahawks is, when you see somebody hanging onto a ledge, and you just start seeing the fingers slipping off. This feels like the Seahawks win because they just...
Amazingly, it looks like Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson are going to be together again next, and I did not think they'd both be there.
There's nobody left from the Legion of Boom now.
No.
You know that. They've all gone now.
All gone. Yep.
They won 7 games. They were disappointing. I don't know who we predicted to finish last in this division. Probably the Cardinals, to be fair. But I'm amazed that Pete Carroll's kept his job because I think he's run out of steam. It's not that he's a bad coach. It's just a bit like Mike Zimmer. I think the message has stopped working. And I think the Seahawks may have missed their chance to get out of this before it gets too bad.
I think you're not going to see coaches getting the level of time that Pete Carroll's had.
No.
I don't think that you're going to see that moving forward. I think it's a dinosaur with kind of a dinosaur idea of retention.
Yeah, they should have done so much more with the talent that's available to them on this team. None of the wide receivers looked that good. Russell Wilson had some of his worst games of his career. The defense just isn't Seattle worthy. And yet they won 7 games because I've just said that like they only won 4 games, but they were so disappointing in a really good division to ultimately finish 5 games behind the Rams as a Seahawk. That's got to be galling.
How many games did they win in the division, John?
Well, bizarrely, they beat the 49ers twice.
They always beat the Niners,
and then they beat a Cardinals team that had given up.
Yeah,
in the final game. Other than that, they beat the Lions, the Jags, the Texans, and the Colts first week in the season when Colts...
terrible.
Seahawks always beat the Niners. Niners always beat the Rams.
So really they only beat 3 good teams. 2 good teams because they beat the Niners twice.
That's a very...
They beat the Niners twice and the Cardinals. Everyone else sucks.
Yeah.
That's a misleading
7. Yeah. That's what I mean. They could easily be way worse.
It literally, like, if they're going to be worse, well, the Niners get 2 wins back. Because
I'm amazed Carroll's kept his job. That's enough.
Yeah, same.
It's not even sucking right.
I'm sorry?
No, as a team, that's not failing correctly because you're not getting the right draft picks.
No.
So you're not going to improve by having a bad season.
So you're going to teach people how to suck.
Pete Carroll is going to suck.
I think the Seahawks would still have made the playoffs if they'd been in the NFC East. I still think they're a better team than the Eagles.
I'd say they're on par with the Eagles. So yes,
I just think they're worse than the Eagles.
You reckon?
Yeah, they lost to the Bears. Because they lost to...
I think Gary's point is, or a part of his point would be, that if Russell Wilson was playing in that division, he would be more motivated knowing he could win. He did not look motivated half the time this season.
He didn't play off the season, did he?
No, but he just didn't look...
When he came back, he was slow to get back to base. But
It was. It was. There was... I don't know. I'm amazed Pete Carroll's there and I cannot move past that. I'm really shocked that they kept
Also, the seat was never hot.
No, not really. Not hot enough. And that's a problem because I know ownership has changed there because the owner passed away.
It's in his estate now, isn't it?
Yeah, but it feels a bit like it should be one of those franchises where someone's making the decision, right, before this collapses around us, we're taking control. And there isn't anyone there to do it. Pete Carroll is effectively in control of Pete Carroll.
Did I hear
That's
you correctly there, John, that the team's in a state?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I
Anybody want to tell me who the most disappointing team in the whole of the NFC was? You want to nominate who was the most disappointing team?
The
I
New
was-
York Giants.
no, because they were.
I'm telling you, it was the Panthers.
I'm telling you, it's the Giants.
It's not the Giants. No one
No
expected
one
anything.
expected anything out of them.
The Giants
No, but
sucked.
I'll tell you why.
Go on then.
Saquon came back. We bought in an elite receiver.
I'm going to start
as
calling him
everyone was
Suck
saying.
One.
But
It doesn't matter,
Saquon came back.
Paul. No one expected. Only you
so
expected
angry.
the Giants to get into playoffs.
Yeah,
I
it was
no,
only you.
But I would have expected better than 4 games in a shit fest.
I had no confidence you were going to get anything better, which is why you still owe me a fiver.
I'm definitely nominating the Panthers. Paul's walked away in disgust. He's off. The Panthers, with all that money they've committed to Darnold and getting CMC back and having Matt Rule, who's supposed to be brilliant, and it just didn't work. He's looking for his
Looking
money.
for some cash. Vikings.
The Vikings, yeah, good
Yeah,
shout.
because they have so much talent across that roster, and they didn't make the playoffs.
Great shout on the Vikings.
Which is ridiculous.
John?
The Bears. It was Nagy was in Last Chance Saloon, and quite frankly, fucked it.
He really did.
And as well, did his best to try and destroy his first year quarterback as well. So
And his son's school career.
yeah,
Here's an interesting one for you. Which of the 4 losing teams is most likely to go from worst to first next season?
Detroit?
No.
Absolutely none of them.
Well, it does happen.
The Panthers, because I think all of the teams are in flux in that division.
I would also say the Panthers because that whole division is going to
Yeah.
be on its head.
I mean, you've got out of all the teams there, I don't see what you guys are saying with Carolina. I think that's a team that's.
To be fair, that NFC South has been a bit up and down for a few years now.
yeah.
it's not. We're not saying that the Panthers are going to get better. We're just saying the Falcons are forever in flux. The Saints are in hell, and who knows what's going to happen with the Bucks. So the Panthers might improve because of the inadequacies of the 3 other teams around them. We're not saying the Panthers are getting good.
The Cowboys to the Giants roster is a huge leap. Massive.
Oh, the Cowboys have one of the best rosters in the league.
That's what I'm saying. And then you go to the Seahawks who have got to get past the Niners and the Cardinals and the Rams.
Yeah, no chance for them.
It's just not going to happen. And then the Lions are just
The Lions are still 2 years away from being competitive.
Aaron Rodgers still owns them.
Oh, but if Aaron Rodgers,
That's the Bears, isn't it? He owns all
If
the
Aaron
animals.
Rodgers leaves Green Bay, then that division.
It's the Vikings.
that's
he's
the
the-
new NFC East.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
That is ridiculous.
Oh, Green Bay would be nothing without him.
You put Jordan Love under centre and tell me a team that comfortably makes the playoffs.
You
there.
put Jimmy Garoppolo under centre.
Yeah, they win more games than Jordan Love.
Can't afford him.
With Jordan Love,
They
they
can
probably
afford Aaron Rodgers,
with Jordan
they can
Love they
afford
probably
Jimmy
win
G.
6 games. That's not good. That's Bears level.
I'm not sure that's
bad.
true.
He was bad. He had the opportunity and he didn't show up. Anybody got anything else to add on the NFC?
Aaron Rodgers' cap hit is 46 million. Jimmy Garoppolo's, if you were to buy contract, is 26, and they are 26 million over the cap.
Yeah, but if you trade Rodgers, then they take the hit, don't they?
Yeah, still a lot of money for Jimmy G for a team that's already 26 million over the cap.
Not if you lose 46 million.
They got more problems than that. But yes, I see your point.
If you trade him, it's still 26 million in dead money.
Ouch.
You can
Right.
move stuff
It's
around.
time for us to wrap this up because otherwise Jim will actually be here because we'll be into next week. Anybody got anything to add?
No.
The AFC is on an upswing. There's this whole division.
Yeah. The NFC looks like it's having some
Do you know
lean
what?
years.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think in the AFC there are some stellar quarterbacks,
Yeah.
and I think there are still, 6 or 7 very, very good teams in the NFC.
Yes.
Which is why the NFC still won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So I think that's easy to say because you look at the headline players and you go Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, like quarterback stock. The quarterback stock is in the AFC. But it's not just the quarterback that wins the Super
For
Bowl.
most of the season in the power rankings, the 6 teams at the top were quite often all NFC for a large chunk of the season.
There's a lot of absolute shit in the NFC.
Yeah.
But what is good in the NFC
Yeah, the
is
top 4
very
teams.
good.
The top 4 teams, yeah.
I'd say the top
But I'd
six,
say,
the
like,
top
Yeah, that's
six.
what I say. 6.
The top 6 are probably in the top 10 of the entire NFL.
But in terms of where we are
last season.
last season, next season is going to be interesting because if you have a Green Bay without Rodgers, you have a Tampa Bay without Brady, you've got a Matt Ryan with no receivers. Basically, the West, yes. Everything else is a pretty dross.
Could be. It could be. With that in mind, it's time to sign off. Good night, all.